今オフに FA になるエンゼルスの大谷翔平への注目度は衰えることがありません。大谷の去就報道が過熱する中、米スポーツ専門サイトアスレチックの敏腕記者ケン・ローゼンタール氏が日本時間27日、自身のポッドキャストで大谷の移籍先が最終的にドジャースとメッツの2択になると伝えると、それに反応してメッツのポッドキャスト番組ベースボールハットでは、大谷の去就に関して移籍先チームの転向が鍵を握っているのではと見解を述べていました。アナハイムやロサンゼルスなどの年間を通じて温暖で過ごしやすい気候に慣れ親しんでいる大谷が、ニューヨークなどの高温多湿で夏と冬の寒暖差が激しい地域を選択する可能性を疑問視していましたので、日本語字幕付きでご紹介していきます。
And also, you want to know what's going on with the Mets in terms of Shohei Ohtani. We're going to talk about a lot about Ohtani going into the offseason. I'm going to read you some stuff and let you know what happened today in an interview with an MLB insider. On Tuesday, Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic speculated on his podcast, Fair Territory, that the bidding for Shohei Ohtani would ultimately come down to the Mets and Los Angeles Dodgers, noting that he could not see Steve Cohen simply passing on bidding on him this offseason. Rosenthal also included the Texas Rangers, San Francisco Giants, and Seattle Mariners as teams who may enter the mix for Ohtani. But he noted that he felt the bidding ultimately would come down to LA versus New York for the likely 2023 AL MVP. Now we know, if you don't know, the Mets have the richest owner in baseball. Now he said that he's lost money over the first 3 years of running this team. He's had to pay bills that the Wilpons had, and he has spent a lot of money, and this year was a disaster. But he did say that the team is going to be competitive. Now, Ohtani is probably the biggest free agent ever. He is the biggest free agent of all time. Nobody's even close to this. You're talking about one of the greatest players, one of the greatest athletes that ever put on a baseball uniform in North America. He still has to go a long way to be Babe Ruth, in my opinion, because he's only really done this 3 seasons on a level that we've never seen. And obviously, he's had 2 now major injuries to his elbow. One that he had in 2018, and obviously this year, which shut his season down where they found that he had tear in his UCL. Nobody knows the kind of surgery he had. His agent did not discuss the kind of level of invasion into the elbow, but what's interesting is that he said he will be ready for the season when it comes to being an everyday player. So where is his value as a player? That is a question I can't answer. I have felt that with him being a two-way player, that he would bring in about $500 million. Say it again. I said $500 million. So this is a player that's going to bring in a ton of money as we sit here in the bird sanctuary. And he will bring in now what that contract's going to be right now with him not being a pitcher for next season. The word is he's going to pitch in 2025. So I don't know what the value will be for him. Is he going to be a player that will sign a 1 or 2 year deal and then go back into the market? That's an interesting thought. Does a team give him a big contract, say $120 million for 2 years? Anything is up for grabs. Anything is possible. There is no bigger free agent, like I said, in the history of baseball than Ohtani. And we know that nothing will keep Steve Cohen from putting the best team on the field. And he will spend as much money as he can to do that. That's not an issue. The issue is, does Ohtani want to be here? Does he want to have to deal with, bad weather in April and May? And does he want to do that? Because he's had very good weather, obviously, in Anaheim and Los Angeles. So he hasn't had to deal with these rather harsh springs sometimes that we have here, in terms of being very cold and being very damp. And in fact, it's been very damp here in New York the last few days. We've been getting part of that hurricane, but the weather has been terrible here. But these are the kinds of questions that we will have answered in this offseason where he's going to go. I would expect that the Dodgers, in my view, the Dodgers will be the number one spot, and the Mets will be number two, with the Mariners and Giants being there. And of course, Rosenthal mentioned the Texas Rangers. Texas Rangers have been spending money like crazy. There's no tax in Texas, no state tax in Texas. So that's a huge advantage for the Rangers, is that they have no tax in their state. These other places, obviously New York, California, Washington, they have high tax rates. So that's something that he'll have to contend with. I have not heard the Cubs. Keep an eye on the Cubs, although they have they might be a little stocked in the outfield. I don't know. They probably would rather sign Bellinger than do a big contract. Who knows? I don't know the whole situation with the Cubs, but that's sort of something to keep an eye on. So I'm going to keep talking about Ohtani. If I get any kind of stories about him.
また、アメリカで連日のように議論されているア・リーグの MVP レースに関して、アメリカのポッドキャスト番組、ニューヨークポストスポーツで、ニューヨークの敏腕記者ジョン・ヘイマン氏とジョエル・シャーマン氏が、シーガーと大谷を比較しながら、見解を述べていましたので、こちらも日本語字幕付きでご紹介していきます。
It's our transition to the AL MVP, which again, I think a month ago, we would have said, come on, Ohtani is going to win the MVP. Yeah. By getting hurt, by Seager coming back from his second IL stint and playing at such a high level for a contender as opposed to the Angels falling out of it, has the door opened where Seager may be able to nudge him out?
Yeah, Seager's been incredible. Fine shortstop, but been arguably the best hitter in the league. Incredible. Batting average close to 340, home runs over 30, OPS well over 1,000. I mean, you could see how the other teams fear him. We saw Buck Showalter put him on base and pitch too low. I mean, Seager is great. He's amazing. And, I'm still not sure the door is open. I do think Ohtani's going to get it. I was always one of those guys that how you affect the playoff race makes a difference to me. It is called most valuable. Seager's team is in the playoff hunt. Probably will get a spot, whether they do or not. They are in the playoff hunt. Certainly that is points for him. He may get some votes. It may not be unanimous, but I still think it's going to be Ohtani just because, again, this is historic, even beyond the Acuna historic. And I know he did it before, but it's still him. It's still amazing. And I know that both guys have missed a lot of time. So I'm not counting against Ohtani that he's going to miss the final month or so. The fact that he is one of the better pitchers in the league and still leads in OPS, slugging, home runs in the American League. Still going to say that it's probably Ohtani, and I think he'll win, but may not be unanimous. I'll say that.
Yeah, even missing the last month, Ohtani's going to end up with, if Seager even plays out here, about 50 or 60 more plate appearances than Seager because of the 2 IL stints. For Seager this year. What I don't want to forget is 2 things here. Number one, the Angels are not in the playoff race, but probably the most important decision any team made was the Angels at the trade deadline. And they were in the race, and they were in the race because of Ohtani. And they decided not to trade Ohtani, which I think they'll probably regret forever, and not get something back. So there was that. The other thing was on September 1st, we would have had a discussion, forget about AL MVP. Is Shohei Ohtani having the greatest season any baseball player has ever had? I don't want to just forget that because he got hurt, he disappeared, He's not talking to reporters, any of that kind of stuff. We're still talking 44 homers. I think he's got 20 steals. He's among the leaders in triples. Oh, by the way, he threw 132 innings at a very high level this year as a pitcher. I think it's him. But to your point, Seager is going to make people, especially, recency bias matters and narrative matters. These things do come up for human beings who vote. And the Rangers are in a race both to get in the playoffs and to win the AL West. And if Seager has a mighty last 2 weeks here, where he helps the Rangers close it out, and especially if they win the division, get the number 2 seed, avoid that first playoff round, I think that would help Seager a great deal in this.
Yeah, I mean, there's still people who count most valuable as playing on a playoff team and helping your team into the playoffs. And, there's a narrative does exist. And, but, I've always been one who espouses that and thinks that's important. And I'm still sort of with Ohtani here. So if I'm with Ohtani, I'm not in the room. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm reading the room. I feel like if I'm with Ohtani at this point and it's close, I got to figure that the vast majority of the voters, the younger people, just go on the stats and the history. It is a historic season, even if he's missed the final 25, 30 games, whatever it's going to be. It's historic to see somebody pitch like that, be one of the top 5 or 6 pitchers in the league, be one of the top 2 hitters in the league now because Seager's right there with him. I think it's historic enough that he's going to get it. And, but give Seager credit. Another year, it's an MVP season.
これからも大谷の活躍から目が離せません。皆様からのコメントもお待ちしております。